Hi there, Jolly is here with another story. Please subscribe our channel for more videos like this. So without wasting time, let's start the story. David and Joe Henninger were going to their friend's house, who used to throw these extravagant parties at his resort in a remote place called Azna in Morocco. All the locals knew about Richard. Party because of his sexual orientation, and party because of his opulent lifestyle. For the locals, it was an opportunity to make some money by selling local products to Richard's guests, who hailed from first world countries and were willing to pay a fortune for things they didn't need. Powered by advertisement, David was a drunk, and while driving to the resort, he accidentally hit a guy on the road. The local boy died on the spot, and David took him to the resort in his car. David did this not because he wanted a proper burial for the child, or to find his family, but to protect himself from any legal implications. Richard was a resourceful man. He knew the local police. Captain Benihad comes and asks David a few questions, just for his sake, and closes the case as an accidental death. But was it? The body of the deceased child had marks indicating that he had been assaulted several times. Speculation was made by the other guests that the boy could have been saved, but David killed him to make sure he didn't have to suffer the consequences. But even if one believed it was an accident, the problem was that David's face showed no trace of guilt or remorse. He didn't care much for a boy who had been killed at such a young age. Hameed was a local who worked for Richard. He had a secret way of making his points. He spoke in proverbs and was quite sensitive to what was happening in front of him. Hameed was in no position to point out indifference on the part of those who prided themselves on their superiority and civilization. All they cared about was their weekend, and how it would be ruined by some unnecessary incident. Everyone partied that night, and by morning the guests had forgotten that anything had ever happened. But an unexpected visit caught them off guard. A man named Abdullah Tahiri came from a place called Kabash, and said that he was the father of the murdered child. First, the capitalist instinct within Richard and David convinced them to demand financial compensation. But Abdullah wanted something else. He wanted David to come to his village, attend his son's funeral, and pay his respects. It was a very tense situation when Abdullah asked David to come with him. Hameed also did not translate the real essence and the tone in which the grieving father spoke. Hameed tells Richard and David that the father is adamant about his demand, but in reality, Abdullah would have agreed even if David had chosen not to side with him. Hameed felt sympathy towards his father. David and the others did not even try to understand what Abdullah must be feeling. He had lost his only son, and all he cared about was celebrating and having a gala time at the resort. They had already imagined that Abdullah had come to blackmail them, or perhaps he was part of ISIS and was planning to kill David. Hameed translated the father's wishes in such a way that David and the others thought the best way to defuse the problem was to accompany him to his village and end it once and for all. David decided to go with Abdullah, and of all things, he was more concerned about having a clean shirt to wear the next day. As he leaves, Joe begins to entertain the possibility of a fling with an American guest named Tom Day. They shared some intimate moments and made the most of their stay at the resort, while David traveled with Abdullah and Anwar. Unsure of what he wanted from her, they arrived at Abdullah's house, and David was shocked to see the condition in which he lived. The intimidating Arab had a small bunker-like house in the middle of nowhere. There was barely anything inside. Anwar had told him that fossils and babies were the only valuables he had. They lived in unfavorable conditions. The boy's name was Drez, and he wanted to sell a unique fossil to rich visitors. He knew he would get good money for it, and then with that money, he could start a new life in Casablanca. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life selling fossils like his father. He had stolen a unique fossil named Elvis from his father's possession. Abdullah was not angry that his own son had stolen from him. He hoped that by selling it he could live the life he had always dreamed of. But fate had something else planned for him. Powered by advertisement, Abdullah learns that after killing his son, David hid his identity so that the police could not trace it to his family. That night, David had to sleep in the dressing room, as it was the only empty space in the bunker. Anwar brings David dinner and tells him that there is no escape for his people. They too wanted a life of luxury, but God had played a joke on them. They say that renovating one bathroom in a first world country can keep a sub-Saharan village alive for a year. This was the disparity in wealth and quality of life. The next morning, David put on his clean shirt and got ready. He was wandering in the desert when Abdullah came and confronted him. He wanted to avenge his son by killing him, but the old man controlled his emotions and let David go. Anwar drops David back at Anza's resort. Something had changed inside David. He felt sympathy for the local people and Abdullah. He gave the 1,000 euros he was carrying to Anwar. Hameed watched him do this, and in contrast to his disdain for the other guests, he now began to respect David. Later that day, everyone goes home, and on the way, David's car is stopped by the same boy who was with Dries. and who saw him killed that night. David gets out of his car, and the boy tells him that the man should take responsibility for his actions. He could not forgive David like Abdullah and shot him. David died there and then, and a shocked woman stood there in disbelief. Blood splattered across her face. Thanks for watching video. Subscribe us for more videos like this. Hit the notification button. Leave a comment and please like us. Goodbye till next time.